You've had this feeling before, that specific quiet kind of frustration where you can see the version of yourself you're supposed to become. You can almost touch it, but something keeps sitting between you and it. Not a wall exactly, more like a fog. You keep moving, but the distance doesn't change, and at some point, somewhere between trying harder and wondering if you're even capable of this, a voice starts to whisper that maybe the gap is bigger than you think. I want to talk to you about that voice, because it's lying to you, not in the way that motivational speeches usually mean it, not the believe in yourself version, where someone pumps you up and you feel great for 48 hours, and then you're right back where you started, maybe even a little more defeated because the enthusiasm wore off and still nothing changed. I'm not here to hype you. I'm here to tell you something that's actually a little disturbing once you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The gap between where you are and what you want is almost certainly not the size you think it is. And the reason you think it's huge, the reason it feels enormous, is not because you've been accurately measuring it. It's because of how your brain handles distance when you're inside the pursuit. Stay with me here. When you're working towards something that matters to you, a skill, a creative goal, a business, a relationship, a physical transformation, whatever it is, your brain does this particular thing that nobody really warns you about. It keeps adjusting the baseline. Every time you make progress, the reference point shifts. What felt like an achievement last month becomes the new floor, and the ceiling is still out there, still just as far away by feel, even if the actual distance has been closing. Psychologists have names for different pieces of this: the hedonic treadmill, adaptation level theory. But strip all that away and what you've got is this: your perception of how far you've come is a genuinely unreliable narrator. You have adapted to your own growth so thoroughly that you can barely see it anymore. Think about something you can do today that you could not do 2 years ago. Something real, not trivial. There is something. I know there is, because you're here. You're this kind of person, which means you've been trying. But when you try to feel the distance you've covered, it probably doesn't feel like much. And that mismatch between actual growth and felt growth is one of the most demoralizing things a person can experience, because it leads you to a false conclusion. The false conclusion is, I've been working and nothing is happening. Therefore, either I'm doing this wrong or I'm not capable of it, or both. But neither of those things has to be true. What might actually be true is that you've been measuring your progress with the most broken instrument imaginable, your own feelings about how it's going. Now here's where it gets interesting, because it's not just that you underestimate how far you've come, it's that the way progress actually works, the real mechanics of it, is almost perfectly designed to feel like nothing is happening right up until the moment everything changes. You've probably heard of the idea of compounding. Usually people talk about it in terms of money. Small returns that seem boring until they suddenly aren't. But the same dynamic is true for skills, for habits, for any kind of meaningful capability you're building in yourself. The early work is mostly invisible. You're not seeing results yet because what you're actually doing is laying infrastructure. You're building the underlying structures that results will eventually run on. The problem is that invisible progress doesn't feel like progress. It feels like stagnation, and because it feels like stagnation, a lot of people stop right there, right in that frustrating in-between phase where everything looks the same on the outside, but something fundamental has been shifting on the inside. There's a concept in materials science called the phase transition. The idea that you can put energy into a system, heat into ice, for example, and for a long time, seemingly nothing happens. The temperature doesn't change. The ice looks like ice. And then, at a specific threshold, suddenly everything changes at once. The state of the whole thing flips. You are, in all likelihood, closer to your threshold than you think. I can't tell you exactly how close. Nobody can. But I can tell you that the experience of being right before a breakthrough almost always feels indistinguishable from the experience of being stuck. That's not a comforting lie. That's a structural feature of how change works. The flatness before the flip. There's something else I want to talk to you about, because it's connected to this, and it's one of the main reasons people end up further from their goals than they need to be. It's the cost of interruption. When you stop a pursuit and restart it later, you're not paying a small price. You're paying an enormous one. And again, it doesn't feel enormous, which is part of why people keep doing it. When you take a break from something hard, the relief is immediate and the cost is deferred. You feel better right now. The damage shows up later, when you come back and feel like you're starting from zero, even though technically you're not. And that starting from zero feeling makes you feel worse than if you'd never stopped. And that feeling makes you more likely to stop again. And the really brutal part is this. Every time you interrupt and restart, you lose some of the accumulated momentum that was quietly building. All that invisible infrastructure I was talking about. The neural pathways, the automatic behaviors, the internal vocabulary for your chosen domain. It doesn't disappear completely, but it degrades. And the next time you're trying to rebuild it, you're doing it without some of the foundational pieces you spent so much energy laying the first time. So, if there's a version of you out there who has been starting and stopping the same thing for a while, and I suspect for some of you, that thing has your name on it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The answer is not to try harder, and it's not to wait until you feel more ready. The answer is to simply not stop, even if the pace is slow. Even if the results feel invisible, the continuity itself is doing something. Let me get specific about something. One of the most common places where people misread their proximity to a breakthrough is in the development of taste. This is true in creative fields, in athletic performance, in intellectual work, basically anywhere where quality judgment is part of the skill set. There's a well-known idea, you might have heard it, that for a long time, your taste is ahead of your ability. You can see good work, you can recognize it, but when you try to produce it yourself, there's a gap. And that gap can feel devastating, especially if you don't understand why it's there or what it means. What it means is that your taste, your critical faculty, is actually working. That gap between what you can see and what you can currently make is not evidence that you're bad at this. It's evidence that you're developing. And the taste develops faster than the skill in the early and middle stages, which means the pain of the gap is actually a byproduct of getting better. The people who don't feel that gap aren't necessarily better off. Sometimes they just haven't developed the taste yet to see it. So if you're someone who looks at your own work and feels like it's not where you want it to be, and that feeling is making you want to pull back, consider the possibility that you are measuring your progress with the one instrument that's guaranteed to show a deficit at exactly this stage. Your taste is doing its job. The skill is still catching up. That's not a problem. That's the process. There's a question I want to ask you to sit with. What if the version of you who has this thing, the skill, the capability, the result, whatever it is, what if that version of you is not years away? What if the main thing standing between you and that version isn't more time, but a different relationship to the time you're already spending? Because here's what I've seen happen, and maybe you've seen it too, in yourself or in people around you. There are people who work on something for 3 years and accomplish very little, And then there are people who work on the same thing for 18 months and accomplish a great deal. And the difference is almost never raw talent, and it's almost never the volume of hours. It's the quality of presence in each hour. It's the degree to which they have actually accepted the difficulty of the current phase, instead of waiting for the phase to get easier. Acceptance is the wrong word, actually. It's not passive. What I'm pointing at is more like a decision. An active, ongoing decision to be fully in this even when it's not comfortable. To show up for the invisible work. To trust the infrastructure you're building even when you can't see it. That decision, compounded over time, is almost incomprehensibly powerful. And the people who understand this, not just intellectually, but in the way they actually conduct their days, tend to arrive at their threshold faster and get through it more cleanly. I want to talk about identity for just a moment because I think it's the thing that either locks everything in or keeps you spinning. You can have the right knowledge, the right framework, the right habits, and still underperform what you're capable of, because at the deepest level of your operating system, you don't fully believe you're the kind of person who does this, that the thing you're working toward is actually yours, that you belong in the territory you're trying to move into. Identity shifts are slow. They're also not usually dramatic. They don't happen in a single moment of motivation. They happen in the accumulation of small choices that gradually update the picture you carry of yourself. Every time you do the work on a day when you didn't feel like it, you add a data point. Every time you handle failure and come back, you add a data point, and at some point, the weight of all those data points tips something over inside you. And suddenly, the identity you were trying to construct is just the identity you have. If you're not there yet, that's okay. You might be closer to the tip than you think. I want to end by telling you something I genuinely believe, and I want to say it directly. You are probably not where you think you are on this path. You think you're far from the thing. I think you might be one of the people who's 20 feet from the gold and about to walk away. I think you might be in the quiet, invisible, excruciating last phase before the phase change happens. I think the infrastructure you've been building, in the days when it felt like nothing was accumulating, in the attempts that didn't land, in the recovery from the setbacks, I think all of that is sitting there right now, loaded and ready, waiting for you to stay in it a little longer. Not forever. Not until you're perfect. Just a little longer. The future version of you who has this is not a fundamentally different person. They're not someone who was born with something you weren't. They're you, the same person you are right now, who didn't stop at the part where stopping felt most reasonable. The gap is smaller than it looks. I promise you, the gap is smaller than it looks. Don't stop.